Heyo everybody, Haku here with my review of this week's new episode of Fire Force. We got episode 3, so of course we had the break last week because of the KyoAni fires and everything, which is again a horrible situation, but it kind of makes me respect the team behind the broadcast of Fire Force even more, that they were respectful enough to say, you know what, let's take a week off because of things. I really did kind of grow to respect them even more because of that, beyond just respecting them for how good their work is. Because my first time watching this, I was like, okay, there are some things about it that aren't quite as good as last episode, but then rewatching it, I feel like the few criticisms I have and the few things that I think maybe weren't as good, I think one of the few things I think weren't as good is the explanation that the company 8 investigates the other 7 companies, but I also feel like the world building kind of makes up for that a bit, because the world building was really good. And on the other side, I did not like Tamaki. I didn't think she was a good character at all. I thought she was annoying. She was just there for fan service. And you know me, I like a lot of ecchi series, so I am not averse to fan service or anything. But the fan service with her just was particularly not good. It was really cringy. But I feel like the fight made up for that. Man, that fight with this villain and Shinra was so good. And this episode also made me like Shinra more, which is good, because I have spent a lot of time growing up being like, little kid me like, oh, I like Piccolo and Vegeta, but Goku sucks. Or little kid me like, man, I like some of the side characters, but why are we always paying attention to Naruto? So it's good when we get some of these shows now that kind of do a good job of actually writing decent main characters. So I like that I can root for Shinra and feel for Shinra. And Arthur, I absolutely love Arthur. This episode made me love him even more. Same with Maki. Maki is so good. Maki might be my favorite character. She is so funny. But some general thoughts. The Joker character, I guess I'm just going to call him Joker because that's what he mentioned. Hey, if the devil wants to come work with the Joker or whatever. So I'm just going to call him that for now until we get a real name. He is so cool. His design, his voice, the way it's so gravelly and stuff, it's so good. And the other guy he's working with, his design, the way he smiles and everything is so... The designs in this show are so good. And that's what, when I say I'm not a fan of Maki's design, or Tamaki's design... Tamaki isn't, her design really isn't that bad, but compared to all the great designs in this show, that's I guess why I'm like, yeah, I'm not as into that one, because the other designs are really great. I love that scientist E guy that made the powder or ash or whatever though. His design, it's so cool, and the way he just is creepily smiling and everything, it's so good. The facial expressions in this show are so good. So yeah, I like Arthur more than I expected to, and I like him more than I did before. Going through some of my notes, Ash I think was the first company captain. I think that was his name. He was cool. And the purpose of Squad 8, that's one of the only negatives I have, but I'll get to that when I get to the scene toward the end. One thing though I loved that I think makes up for all that, I love the world building and the kind of political stuff we got into with all of these different groups within the Tokyo Empire and their different influences on different things. I thought that was really good. A lot of the things we learned this episode, it did feel a little bit weirdly early in the series for us to be learning this. I'm like, shouldn't we be learning this at like episode 20 something, not at episode like 3? So some things did seem like they happened a little bit early. Don't mind it. I will say the fan service sucked. And again, I'm not averse to fan service. I don't mind it at all. We had fan service in the previous 2 episodes and didn't bat an eye, but the fan service in this one was just, it wasn't good fan service. It was bad. Like anything, fan service can be good or bad, fighting can be good or bad, etc., etc. Comedy can. The fan service just wasn't good in this. And again, if I see anybody talking about the manga, I try to be like, nope, I'm out of there, I'm avoiding it, don't want to get spoiled on anything at all. but I did see some manga readers saying that the cat girl, who Tamaki, we now know her name, was a pointless, useless character, and she was really annoying, and now I can totally see it. I can totally see why people were saying that about her character. So yeah, let's go through the actual episode now, part by part. So we start off looking a bit at the world and learning a bit about the world, and the way it looks, it's sort of sunk. I guess if the world was on fire and heated up, the ice caps would melt and it would be kind of sunk like that. So maybe this makes sense in that sort of situation. But yeah, the world is a bit sunk, and even the places that aren't sunk, a lot of it's just on fire. So I think this could be really cool to explore in the future. If they like leave out of the Tokyo Empire and there's just these like wastelands of fire and charred ground, that would be insane. That would be so cool. And just other settlements out here in this flaming, burning world, like that would be just really cool to explore in the future for the series. Let's see here. The editing, oh my god, the way they were jumping around to stuff as the two of them were talking. I said it last episode, but the editing is crazy good. It's something that this show, even though I've only been watching it for a few episodes now, it's something that this show has made me start noticing because it is so good. We learn a little bit more about Obi, that he was decorated and then stripped twice from his decorations, from his awards, because he valued saving people over following orders. Then we get to see some good comedy stuff as we get to the actual, what is it? The, like, rookie games or something. Now, this is a concept that could have been played up more. We could have learned more about the other rookies. We could have had it make a little bit more sense, because, I mean, if they all don't communicate with each other and stuff, then what's the point of showing off the rookies? What's the point of any of this? What were any of the rookies even meant to learn or anything at this point from this exercise or situation? We never really got into that. So, while this was good, that didn't really make a lot of sense, I guess, but we get some good comedy with it. I love just us, we have the opening, and then we cut from the opening to Shinra just with his arms out, like, yes, the rookie games or whatever. All of that was good. And we get 1-1-9. 1-1-9 was the cutest thing ever. It was adorable. I loved it. And Maki just freaking out over it is the best. Maki is the best character. And I loved all their outfits, like Maki's little, like, sort of official dress outfit, and then Shinra in sort of his half uniform, and then we had Arthur in the half uniform with the hoodie on, looked really, really cool. So I loved all their outfits. We see the eye patch guy. So I was like, okay, eye patch guy. I said when we saw him in the flashback, that guy's got to be important because his design is too cool. So of course we get to see him. He's kind of secretive. And then we have the first bit of fan service, and it is bad. It's really bad. Like, I'm gonna say this show is still amazing, but even still amazing shows can have bad scenes. This was a bad scene. It just wasn't good. It was cringy. It was a mess. And it was like, again though, what even is the point, to be honest? But either way. And like this whole exercise, what is the point of this whole just getting past it? It provided us a setup for a cool story, but the kind of event itself doesn't make a lot of sense, to tell the truth. So we see when Shinra goes to fight this guy that he's at least a third generation because he's producing fire. And he's also using this blast powder. And we see from the scene at the end that even though the blast powder was spread everywhere, it didn't react to Shinra or Arthur's flames, so it's obviously just not something that any sort of fire causes to explode. It's something that is like a willingly controlled thing from Joker. So I'm thinking maybe it's something like infernal dust, because when it like starts popping and crackling and explodes, it almost has this sort of screaming and screeching sound to it. So I'm thinking maybe it's like ground infernal or infernal dust or something, dust made from infernals that they're able to use as blast powder. That is pretty cool even. But he knows about the fire that Shinra's family supposedly died in, and I like that some common thing with his character is that even though he's being all secretive and stuff, he wants attention. He's like, so you want to save these guys instead of paying attention to me? Or later on, when he does pay attention to him, he's like, oh, so you are paying attention to what I'm saying now, or something like that. So that's a cool thing with his character there that I liked. And I love just the fighting style we see between the two of them, or the way that fights are choreographed in this show. The choreography was so good here. The facial expressions when he says he's going to kill him and everything. Oh man, it's so good. But he then tells him Shou's alive. So yeah, didn't keep that secret for long. I feel like everybody pretty much knew. They're like, oh, the little brother's totally not dead if they didn't find a body. So I feel like we all totally knew, but we get that reveal pretty soon. And then fight continues. The fighting is so good. It is so good. We then have the scene of Tamaki falling on Arthur, and she's such a pointless... She wasn't needed at all in this episode. Such a pointless character, and really bad fan service. But Arthur is great though. Even his jokes were, do I look like a knight-shaped seat cushion? Or then when she starts hitting him, do I look like a knight-shaped punching bag? It was so good. Just referring to, obviously you can see that I am knight-shaped. It's so good. So good, his character. And just the style, the leaving with the bye and the smoke and everything, the way he fights, the way he dresses, everything about Joker just drips style. The friggin' style of this character is so good. And even then Arthur continuing to be amazing when they escape and then he's falling from the sky. All of it is amazing. And then we get to the end where we have just a hell of a ton of information dumped on us. So Shinra explains everything to Obi, and Obi sort of explains more about this world, saying the Fire Force was formed by the Holy Soul Temple, the Tokyo Armed Forces, and the Fire Defense Agency. So the Fire Defense Agency seems to be the one that's like telling them to group up or whatever, because I'm pretty sure he said that they were the ones that said that the Eighth Company was necessary to investigate. And then of course there's the Armed Forces. So I guess when we got the explanation that the Holy Soul Temple influences the First a lot, which you couldn't really tell by looking at Tamaki and what's-his-face, Ash. Couldn't really tell. I was kind of hoping that whichever one they influenced would just be like full of nuns like Iris, just a company just full of those. Instead of having one, they just have a bunch of them. But the First is influenced a lot by the Temple. The Second reports directly to the Armed Forces. So different groups have different levels of influence over different companies. The Fifth, in particular, is really controlled by Hajime Industries, he mentions. And Hajime Industries has a monopoly on their equipment and all that. So we got the explanation that these three groups formed the Fire Force, and they say that, okay, the Temple influences the First, the Tokyo Armed Forces influence the Second, but they didn't mention the Fire Defense Agency until saying, oh yeah, they thought it was necessary to have the Eighth investigate the others. So I guess that's their way of maybe saying that the Eighth is the most influenced by the Fire Defense Agency, I suppose. But yeah, each company keeps the info to themselves, which honestly is cool lore-wise. It adds a lot more mystery into the series, but it also doesn't make any logical sense, because that wouldn't help the Fire Force at all to have each company keep info to themselves. It wouldn't help anyone. Yeah, the Eight investigates the others. It doesn't make a whole ton of sense that they do, because instead of creating one group to investigate the other seven, wouldn't you just say, okay, you seven need to communicate with each other? Wouldn't that be a lot easier and more helpful to everyone involved for them to just communicate? So yeah, it had a few problems. There were a few problems with that, but again, I think the world building makes up for it. The world building was really good, and it leads us to a lot of cool potential things in the future. And I think the fan service just wasn't good. It was bad. But the fight was incredible. The fight was so good, it makes up for it. Plus, we got all this cool comedy stuff. So yeah, it was still amazing in the end of the day. While I do think I had issues where I had like no issues at all in the past two, those issues just weren't really that big a problem in the grand scheme of how good the good things were. So yeah, still amazing. I'd say 9 secrets out of 10. Just because that fight, just no matter what I thought of everything else, even though I thought, again, there were at least 2 scenes in particular that I thought, or at least one scene in particular, because Arthur kind of saved the other one, but one scene that I thought was bad, who cares, because that fight was so good. That was really, really good. But yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like if you did like the video, comment down there to tell me what you thought of this episode, what you thought of my thoughts on it. Subscribe for more. Fire Force much more on the channel. Follow on Twitter if you want. I can try to keep you updated there instead of the channel or talk to you there. If you want a link to our Discord server to talk to me or more of us on Discord, just ask and I can give you a link. And, gosh, I feel like I'm forgetting something. Oh yeah, if you want to help support the channel on Patreon, that would really help support the channel. And I'm going to be adding another series to the channel on Sundays, and patrons are going to get to vote for what that new series is. So if you want to join the Patreon, that'd be cool. But yeah, that's it. Thank you once again for watching, and I'll see you all next time.